Okay guys, so we're talking about have you seen this snail, and honestly, this episode still gives me chills even as an adult. Like, when I first watched this as a kid, I didn't realize how messed up it actually was, but looking back now, yikes. So basically, the whole thing starts pretty normal. SpongeBob gets this paddle ball set in the mail. You know, one of those Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy toys that he's always obsessed with. But here's where it gets dark real quick. The challenge is to hit the ball 29 billion times in a row. Like, who even comes up with that number? And SpongeBob just loses it. Completely. He gets so obsessed with this stupid game.
What's this? Take the Dirty Bubble Challenge. Hit the paddle ball 29,998,559,671,349 times in a row.
That he literally forgets to feed Gary. Not for like an hour or two, we're talking about a week, maybe even 10 days. Can you imagine? Poor Gary is just sitting there starving while SpongeBob is hitting this ball over and over like some kind of zombie. The worst part is when Gary tries to get SpongeBob's attention because he's literally dying of hunger, and SpongeBob just yells at him to leave him alone. Like, dude, this is your pet, your best friend.
Now, if you don't mind, I would like to get back to it.
And you're treating him like garbage because of some dumb game. That scene where Gary looks all sad and heartbroken. Man, that hits different when you're older. So Gary does what any of us would probably do. He runs away. And this is where the episode gets really dark. Gary ends up with this old lady who seems nice at first, right? She's feeding him tons of food, giving him attention, everything SpongeBob wasn't doing. But then, oh boy. Remember that scene where Gary finds the closet full of empty snail shells? Those are from all the other snails this crazy lady has eaten. Like, what the heck, Nickelodeon? This is supposed to be a kid's show, and you're showing us a serial killer grandma who eats pets? The way those shells just fall on Gary and he realizes what's happening, that's straight up horror movie stuff. And don't even get me started on those creepy snail portraits on her wall that literally scream "run" at Gary.
Run!
Like, these are the ghosts of her previous victims trying to save him. That's some next level dark content right there. Meanwhile, SpongeBob is running around town looking for Gary, putting up posters and everything. There's this whole montage where they keep missing each other by like seconds, and you can see how broken SpongeBob is. The scene where he's crying in his pineapple house at night, that's heartbreaking, man. You really feel bad for him even though it's totally his fault. Patrick being Patrick doesn't help much either. He literally sees Gary in the store but gets distracted by pine cones. Classic Patrick move, but also super frustrating when you're watching it. The chase scene at the end, where Gary escapes from the cannibal grandma, is pretty intense too. She's throwing cookies and deviled eggs at him like weapons. And Gary has to trick her by pushing another snail in front of her so she takes him instead. Like, Gary basically sacrificed another snail to save himself. That's some serious survival stuff. When SpongeBob and Gary finally reunite, it's happy, but also kinda sad because you know Gary went through some serious trauma. And that last joke where Gary says he's too full to eat, yeah, that's because he was being force-fed by someone who wanted to make him fat enough to eat. This episode really shows how neglect can destroy relationships and how obsession can make you hurt the people you love most. Pretty heavy stuff for a cartoon about a sponge, right? Now that we've talked about Gary running away, let's move on to our second darkest episode, Fools in April. And guys, this one is messed up in a completely different way. Like, the Gary episode was sad because of neglect, but this episode, this is straight up psychological torture. So the whole thing starts on April Fool's Day, which is supposed to be SpongeBob's favorite holiday. And at first it seems pretty innocent, right? SpongeBob is doing his usual harmless pranks around the Krusty Krab. You know, the kind where everyone laughs together and nobody gets hurt. Even the customers think it's funny. That's what pranks should be like. But then Squidward. Man, Squidward just ruins everything. He gets so jealous and angry watching SpongeBob have fun that he decides to show him what a real prank looks like.
Bob has stupid pranks. I'm gonna show him what a real prank is all about.
And this is where the episode gets really dark. The prank Squidward sets up is literally dangerous. Like, he ties this heavy anchor to the ceiling and creates this whole trap that's gonna hurt SpongeBob. When I was a kid watching this, I thought it was just cartoon violence, but now, dude could have seriously injured SpongeBob or even killed him. That anchor was huge, and when SpongeBob gets caught in the trap, It's not funny at all. He gets dragged around the restaurant, smashing into walls and furniture, and you can see he's actually in pain. The worst part is Squidward just standing there, laughing like a maniac while SpongeBob is getting hurt. That's not a prank, that's just cruelty. But here's what really gets me. SpongeBob starts crying, like genuine tears. He runs out of the restaurant completely heartbroken, and you can tell this isn't just about the physical pain. SpongeBob trusted Squidward, and Squidward betrayed that trust in the worst way possible. Even the customers are disgusted and walk out because they know what Squidward did was wrong. The whole middle part of the episode is just painful to watch. Squidward trying to apologize but being too proud and selfish to do it properly. He tries all these half-hearted ways to say sorry without actually facing SpongeBob or admitting what he did was wrong, like sending a note in a bottle but shoving the cork in so tight that SpongeBob can't even open it. That's not an apology. That's just Squidward trying to make himself feel better. And don't get me started on that scene where Squidward puts a bubble over his head so SpongeBob can't hear his apology. That's probably the most selfish thing I've ever seen on this show. He's literally pretending to apologize just so he can tell himself he tried. The only reason Squidward finally gives a real apology is because he starts hallucinating his mom telling him he stinks. Like, his guilt is so bad that he's having mental breakdowns. That's some heavy psychological stuff for a kids show.
You stink!
But then, the twist ending. Turns out, SpongeBob wasn't really hurt at all. It was all just an elaborate prank to get back at Squidward. And honestly, this might be the darkest part of the whole episode. Think about it. SpongeBob let Squidward suffer with guilt, made him question everything about himself, and manipulated him into revealing his true feelings. That's some next-level mind games right there. The fact that everyone in town was in on it makes it even worse. They all watched Squidward go through this emotional torture and just let it happen. That's not funny. That's kind of sadistic. This episode shows us that even SpongeBob has a dark side when pushed too far. And Squidward? Well, he learned that his cruelty has real consequences, even if it was all fake in the end. Pretty twisted stuff for a cartoon about sea creatures, don't you think? Alright guys, we've talked about Gary running away and Squidward's cruel prank, but now we're getting to the absolute darkest SpongeBob episode of all time, Grandma's Kisses. And honestly, this episode messed me up more than any other cartoon ever has. Like, this isn't just sad, this is straight up traumatic. So the episode starts innocent enough. SpongeBob is visiting his grandma, doing normal grandkid stuff, eating cookies, listening to stories, just being happy. But then he goes to work and bam! Everyone at the Krusty Krab starts making fun of him because his grandma kissed his forehead. And this is where things get really messed up. The way Squidward and the customers laugh at SpongeBob is just cruel. They're literally bullying him for having a loving relationship with his family. Like, what kind of toxic society makes fun of someone for being loved? SpongeBob runs home crying, and you can see his whole world just got turned upside down. But here's where it gets really dark. Patrick convinces SpongeBob that he needs to grow up and stop acting like a kid. And guys, this is probably the worst advice anyone has ever given in cartoon history.
You're a man now, SpongeBob, and it's time you started acting like one.
Patrick basically tells SpongeBob that who he is isn't good enough, that his natural personality is wrong, and that he needs to change everything about himself to fit in. So SpongeBob shows up to Grandma's house with fake sideburns, trying to act all adult and serious. And what happens? His grandma starts treating him completely different. No more cookies, no more stories, no more love and affection. Instead, she gives him boring adult stuff like maintenance manuals and office supplies, while Patrick gets all the fun kid treatment. This part always makes me angry because it shows how conditional love can be. Like, SpongeBob's grandma literally stops showing him affection just because he's trying to act mature. That's not how family should work. You're supposed to love someone no matter what, not punish them for trying to grow up. The scene where SpongeBob realizes what he's lost is absolutely heartbreaking. He's watching Patrick get everything he used to have. The stories, the cookies, the sweater with love in every stitch. Meanwhile, he's getting treated like some boring stranger. You can see the exact moment SpongeBob's heart breaks. And then comes the breakdown scene. Oh man, this scene is dark. SpongeBob starts crying so hard that he literally floods the house with his tears. He's having what's basically a mental breakdown, screaming about wanting to be a baby again, wanting his childhood back. The way he hyperventilates and collapses, that's not cartoon crying. That's genuine psychological trauma.
You don't have to be a baby to get old Grandma's love.
What makes this even worse is that this happens to real kids all the time. Society tells them they need to grow up and act mature, and they lose their sense of wonder and joy. SpongeBob represents every kid who's ever been told they're too old for something they love. The saddest part is when SpongeBob says he wants to live like a baby again. He's so desperate to get back what he lost that he's willing to give up everything just to feel loved again. That's depression, guys. That's what happens when someone feels like they have to choose between being themselves and being accepted. Even though the episode has a happy ending, where Grandma explains she'll love him no matter what, the damage is already done. SpongeBob went through this traumatic experience of losing his identity and his family's love, and that's not something you just bounce back from. The final scene where everyone's watching from outside the window is creepy too. Like, they're all spying on this private family moment, which just shows how toxic the whole community is. This episode basically shows a kid having an identity crisis and losing his childhood innocence in the span of 11 minutes. That's some heavy psychological trauma disguised as a kid's show. No wonder this one's the darkest. It hits way too close to home for anyone who's ever felt pressure to grow up too fast. So there you have it, guys, the 3 darkest SpongeBob episodes ever.